today Jonathan Goldman, without an exaggeration, an actual pioneer in sound healing and an artist and author that has helped us understand how sound heals for decades now. While he's getting situated and brought online, I am going to get into our announcements because there's lots of great things coming up. So the first thing I wanted to let you know is that Mariposa, our incredible, transformative, inspiring educational program that centers around LGBTQ issues, those diversity dialogues will start again on November 4th. And those will be held in the sanctuary so that our average attendance for those diversity dialogues will fill the 500-seat theater perfectly for social distance. And I hope you will join. There is information on our class page, starts on November 4th. And oh, there's Jonathan and Jonathan together again. So again, November 4th, that's, I guess that's a Wednesday. I will be starting a series of classes. Hey, Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan.
I'm just into the announcements.
All right, cool.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going, but we'll get to you in 1 second. I'm so happy to see you. All right, so I will be starting a new series every Tuesday for 7 Tuesdays, a series that we call Spiritual Experience. And we will be talking about different states of consciousness each of 7 Tuesdays. So you can join one or all. They're all different. The first one, the kickoff on November 3rd, is kind of an overview, a summary of why spiritual experiences matter, how they shape our lives, and so on. The wonderful Kathy Humphreys has another Soul Circle cycle beginning soon. The first one was full and was so loved as people were able to finally get together and share and process what's going on in life. This one will probably be very important to sign up for because the elections are almost here. So that is also on the classes page. Information on any of these things is on the classes page. The next thing I wanted to remind you about is not only that we are accepting donations, of course, online and right now, but we are encouraging people to become evergreen members, which means you can go to our Vanco page and instead of kind of dropping bits and pieces here and there whenever you remember, you just sign up for one robust, generous, loving contribution per month, and then you just forget about it and it'll just cycle and cycle and cycle for the rest of your life, and we will be so grateful. Now, the reason why the evergreen donations really make a difference is because especially in a moment like this where we don't have very much in-person income and revenue, it's kind of nice to know if we're going to make it through the month or if we're going to have another month. So we have stayed strong throughout 2020. It's remarkable. But we keep paying the bills. We have all our staff. We're looking after our building. Althea is staying strong. But the Evergreen program is a way to move to a greater sense of security and peace of mind for us all. So I think those are the announcements I wanted to cover today. And there's my buddy. Oh my gosh, Jonathan, I am so happy to see you. It's been, how long has it been? It's been like a couple of years, right?
At least, my friend, yeah.
This is so crazy because we live near each other.
Yes, which is makes it even more difficult to see each other. I don't know why, but that really seems to be, a case in point. But how wonderful to see you, and good morning. And I guess everyone who's now, probably a lot of people who are watching right now, it might be snowing in their area.
Yes. Now, we do get both live and then later people watching the recordings beyond Colorado. So I know we have friends in California. We have friends in California watching right now. But yeah, and all I can say is today, let's just be grateful for snow and cold weather and pray that these fires are extinguished and that the land is nourished and we get beyond this Michigas.
Right. Well, I was writing to somebody over in England, and I thought the fires will maybe a metaphor for a lot of what's going on right now. I don't know how you feel about that.
I do. In fact, as soon as we finish our opening breath and prayer, that's one of the first things I want to talk to you about. So why don't I do this? You are going to help us at some point in something experiential. So what I'm going to do for now is, so normally on our Sundays, I start with a guided meditation, and then I do a little prayer, and then we share this statement of being we've had for like 130 years. I'm going to drop the meditation part. I'm going to leave that to you later, whenever you feel it. And then I'm just going to invite everyone to settle in for a kind of a centering prayer, and then we'll just get rolling. Does that sound okay? Very good. All right. So whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I'm going to invite you to take a big, 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 big breath in as though you were gathering life force. Hold it for a moment. Notice where you're feeling tension, tightness, resistance, and then really focus on a long, slow exhale. And you can continue just like that, very simply, breathing in fully, deeply in through the nose, feeling that breath traveling down to your very core as though it were filling your belly, holding it just a moment to notice where there is tension, resistance, distraction, and again, breathing out through your mouth as long as you can until your stomach muscles contract. And as we slow down and settle down, we enter into one of the first great expressions of sound, which is silence. And I encourage you to sense the silence within you, the silence around you. Even if there are noises, there is the silence that holds it all. In this awareness of silence, we find that our hearts open, our minds relax, and we remember, more than remember, we feel that we are together beyond time or space or any of the illusions that the open eye presents. We are one in spirit and life, in the concert of creation. And so from this place we pray, each in our own way, and yet together as one. To our source, our substance, to the one that is all. Dear God, we are grateful for another day. We are grateful for this time and this way to be together beyond limits, to find ourselves and each other in a time of reflection, in a time of growth, in a time of healing. May this gathering lift our hearts and minds that we may learn, love, and let go today and all days, that we might be grateful for all the ways we are nourished by life in body, mind, heart, and soul, and through the richness of our senses. Today, we offer a special blessing of peace for this planet, the cooling of the fires, the moisture and nourishment for the land, the cooling of hearts and minds, the moisture and nurturing of communities. May we come together as a flowering garden, all nations, all people, all creatures, all beings together as one in this extraordinary symphony. Today, may we learn to listen anew. May we open our awareness to the vibration that we are and the vibration that we are a part of. And from this place, together in this moment, we share, we affirm, we emanate love in the highest for each and all, everywhere, with no exception. Amen. And for our community members, we will close with our statement of being, but I am too eager and anxious to jump into the energy of this, to spring out of prayer and into this healing conversation. Jonathan, I want to ask you immediately. And folks, if you don't know who I'm talking to you and you haven't read what we have posted and you haven't read what I've said about this guy, you're going to look it up later and you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, we got to hang out with him." That's all I got to say. So Jonathan, I know you have been a pioneer in sound healing for decades. I know this is a life path and calling for you. I know you live and breathe this. And I know that sound and vibration is not only the nature of our world, but it's the nature of your frame of reference and life. So just to jump into something big, I wonder, how do you look at this year, 2020, and what it signifies? If you were to, because the way I see things is that I often sit in a place where I kind of strip away all the sides and the faces and the polarities. It's all just vibration and energy changing. How, as someone who has immersed himself in sound and vibration, how do you make sense of what's going on, and how do you help other people make sense of what's going on through the lens of vibration and sound?
A great question, Jonathan. Can I admit that I have no answers to anything at this point? I am, if you like, looking at everything from a learner's mind. I will say that I think that we're obviously, as everyone would perceive, we are in a time of great flux, shift, and change, number one. And I know that you've seen these cymatic pictures that have now become so prevalent these days of how sound affects water and creates different forms in water. First made famous by a scientist by the name of Hans Jenny, a medical doctor in the 1950s. And what you would do is you would have these different frequencies creating these lovely different geometric forms in water. And as the frequency began to shift and change, what happened was that the shape that was created by the water all of a sudden went into chaos. And then as a new frequency came in, the water would take on a new shape. I think that is, if you like, a great metaphor for what is happening right now. We well may be in, as many people say, in a state of chaos going into coherence, or if you like, harmony and oneness, as you were talking about.
So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to probably interrupt you a lot because I want to fit in so much. So tell me something more about, what was the word you used? Chaos and coherence.
Right.
In sound healing, or even in music for that matter, are they necessary partners? Or can't we just go from coherence to coherence to coherence? Does it have to get this shitty to get that good?
Okay, so on a level, a great question. I think that if we're looking at these cymatic images as a metaphor, that anytime you go from one frequency to another, there is a place of instability as the frequency changes. Now, that may only be a metaphor of the cymatic images, but it's interesting. I'm going to jump around for a moment because I'm sure that we're both aware of the whole heart-brain coherence thing that has been made well known by heart math, although not necessarily originated there. And I remember some years ago, I was talking with Howard Martin, who's the president of heart math, and I was noting that if you like, I don't know if you want to call them heart rate variability graphs or whatnot, for example, fear was very similar to what, if you looked at an image of what people perceive of as being noise, this really chaotic type of thing, they look just the same. And what they perceive of as coherence was the same thing as basically a wonderful, harmonically related sound wave. So I thought, wow, okay, so if you like fear and noise are very much alike, coherence and harmonious sound are just alike. And now those metaphors seem to be coming more into our consciousness, because I know people who are doing workshops entitled From Chaos to Coherence. Yay,
Right.
you know?
Okay. So now I got to jump in. So I remember some of those early, I believe they were actually filmed, where the black plate was put on top of the speaker, and then the white sand. And I remember actually seeing that, now that I think about it, now that you bring it up, at a young age. And it's true that when there was a piece of music playing, that eventually it would form this pattern, usually, as you say, beautiful. And then if the music was changed, there was a moment where there was like no pattern. It was just kind of chaotic. Now, and then it would establish the new pattern. So that makes a lot of sense, right? If we are moving from one consciousness, which is my belief, where we are literally seeing the end of a paradigm, a dominant world paradigm, shifting into a new one, chaos is part of the result. But I have two questions. One's more of a technical question, but I think I'm going to stay metaphorical for a second. In this sense that the energy of the world is changing, that consciousness is changing, and so what we're seeing around us reflects that. Any comments on the chicken and the egg? Is the energy of consciousness and the planet changing, therefore we're seeing upheaval? Or is the upheaval triggering the change of energy and consciousness? Like, who's doing what to who, or is it both? That's confusing.
As Mick Jagger said at Altamont, who's fighting and what for? Okay, he did. But I'd like to take a step back, because as you were talking, I had another thought, which maybe was an unstated thought, which is chaos always bad? Rather than is chaos necessary, is chaos always bad?
Great question. Yeah.
Okay, and once again, chaos, coherence, noise, and sound. And you started up with one of my favorites. You started off with what I perceive as being the yin to the yang of audible sound, and that's silence. So there is no silence without sound. There is no sound without silence. So I think that they are, if you like, part of the whole completion of the oneness. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's interesting because I don't know if you're going to see this as related, but one of the things I've been thinking a lot about this week is the topic of comfort, comfort with uncertainty, or being comfortable being uncomfortable. So just bear with me for a second. As you know, I've spent a lot of years with Indigenous people, and a lot of the traditional ceremonies, not the kind of workshops that you can get downtown, but the traditional ceremonies, they're pretty hard, right? It's like it's sweating and starving and freezing and boiling and all this kind of stuff. And when people say, like, well, what were the highlights of those experiences? They're really asking about, like, did you see things? Did a spirit talk to you? Whatever. And what I always say is probably the greatest thing I walked away with was the ability to hold moments of discomfort, to hold myself in moments of discomfort without judgment, and to simply endure with curiosity. And so what I'm getting out of I think what I'm getting out of what you're saying is, isn't it interesting that so much of our conversations are about, is this necessary? Why is this necessary? And I almost wonder if you're saying, well, of course, it's part of life. Why do we make such a big deal of the fact that it's hard right now? Is that
Okay, well,
true?
I'm going to throw something at you because I was a little bit picking up some of the no pain, no gain phenomena.
Okay, which is also worth contesting.
And I'm not sure, because years ago, I remember I was at that state of going, okay, it seems where most transformational states have to be in a state of discomfort in order for the shift to occur. And my dear beloved mentor teacher, a woman named Sarah Benson, who I like to call her the divine mother of sound healing, she said, well, you know, Jonathan, that may be true, but I think you can also have extraordinary shift, change, and transformation through the power of love. And this is 20 years ago. This isn't now where everybody's, oh, love, love, you know, and I go, yeah, that, you know, and that does seem also to be such an incredible thing that maybe the new paradigm is working with the phenomena of love as a transformer rather than pain.
Well, and you know what's so important about what you pointed out is in the end, it wasn't macho endurance that was the transformative lesson in the face of discomfort. It was simply learning to love myself even while I felt incomplete or broken or scared. Now I want to move that into some questions I have for you about how do we take the blessing and the power of vibrational awareness and sound healing into our lives. But I have a technical question first. Can you, because the people that are listening for the most part, I know are people that believe in sound healing on a general level, that probably have heard some of your programs or they have other similar things. But when people talk about frequencies, now I mean this in a technical way. So I download recordings of the ocean encoded with the frequency of the ocean. Now I don't think I hear the frequency, or this flute music has been programmed with the frequency of the earth. Is frequency something we hear? Like, what is frequency and sound the same thing? What the heck is frequency? We're going to talk about it a lot in the rest of our time. What are we talking about?
I love that question. We're going to deal with it for the next hour because it's that important, and so few people have asked that. People think that frequency and sound are synonymous.
They're not.
It isn't. It isn't. Sound does create one form of frequency within a bandwidth. Sound is measured in cycles per second. These cycles per second are the amount of times that a particular string or a flute or a tuning fork will vibrate and make a certain sound. And we hear upwards of about 16,000 of these cycles a second, but dolphins, our friends in the ocean, can hear upwards of 180,000 times, 10 times. But regardless, what is so interesting is when we talk about raising our vibrations, we're not, or raising our frequencies, we're not necessarily talking about sonic frequencies. And that's where I think there's a great mistake and a great error. Because, for example, just as an example, our brain, as you know, oscillates into different frequencies that are very much within an audible bandwidth and almost getting into the lower bandwidth or extremely low frequencies. But it seems with our brain that the slower the frequencies of the brain, the pulsations of the brain, the more in-depth and higher aspects of consciousness, light and love we're able to encode. So that if you basically are trying to raise the brain going faster and faster, unless you are, and here's something that most people are missing, unless we have a baseline that's very slow, and then like a diver going up to a diving board and hitting it and going up, that's fine. But until you have that, just think about the times when airports are really vibrant, fluid things, and you're rushing to make a plane. And you are basically in this really high beta plus state of consciousness, and you're there and you're focused on doing it. And that's great, but that was not necessarily a state of consciousness where you would probably want to contact all that is in the divine oneness, because you're basically, here's my ticket, don't leave without me type of thing. So once again, slowing down is really such a major thing. And this includes, of course, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our brain waves, which is why working with music that is very slow, pulsed, and whatnot, and that's a rhythmic thing, is often most effective for achieving deep states of health, wellness, and higher consciousness. So thus, I'm saying that I think we confuse things, and perhaps it's antithetical. Perhaps the higher our vibrational rate goes, the slower our nervous system interacts.
I think that's exactly it. That's my experience. In fact, I've often said, spiritual energy accelerates when we slow down, and when we speed up, our spiritual growth slows down. Now, but to dive into a little deeper into what you're talking about, so let's say someone wants to select. Okay, now I'm jumping from really big picture stuff to some practical stuff. When when they're going to select some healing sound, healing music, that's the way people think of it, which is also, I think, something people confuse. So they're going through stress, they're feeling anxiety, they're nervous about the election, they're nervous about the fires, they're nervous about the economy, and they say, okay, I listened to Jonathan, and Jonathan, I gotta go download me some sound healing. You talked about looking for something slow, but could you comment a little more about sound, I don't know, I even have the language, sound healing music or recordings versus music? Like, can people be confusing? Because anybody could label a song healing. How do they know what is sound healing, and what is the role of frequency in that?
Okay, so this is 10 minutes and you asked 4 questions, and I'm brilliant. First of all, I always like to talk about the difference between sound and music. I differentiate between sound and music because when people, if we talk about sound healing, people might, if they are expecting a piece by Mozart or Beethoven, they may be disappointed. But if they're, ready to hear perhaps the tone of a bowl, which may or may not, because once again, much better live than encoded through the internet. But and particularly, what we're going to be dealing with later as an exercise is the power of the hum, and the hum is a great, if you like, sound. I don't know if it's particularly musical. It's very, very powerful. It has deep, profound effects, and the thing is that a lot of people, one of the reasons we're dealing right now, my wife Andy and I, we have this best-selling book called The Humming Effect, is simply we were looking for a, shall we say, a sonic phenomena that was inclusive, that everybody could be a part of, as opposed to exclusive, i.e. I can't do it because I'm not a musician, I'm not a trained singer, I'm not a trained this and that. So that's number one. So I differentiate sound and music. By sound usually are single tones, usually single tones or composite frequencies that don't modulate much, change much in terms of rhythm, or change much in terms of the actual notes. In other words, do is music, do is sound. That, I just made that up, but I hope that perhaps makes a little thing. It's number one. And also, it is my belief that we are all unique vibratory beings. And if you're a medical doctor and I say, okay, how many of your patients are allergic to penicillin? And Jonathan, this gets in the idea of the understanding that everything in the universe is in a state of vibration. And therefore, penicillin, for example, would be a vibratory frequency. And I know that the doctor would say, well, anywhere from 5 to 20% of my patients are allergic, because this is what the phenomena is whenever I ask a workshop, because I say this as an experience, because I say, okay, in that case, for 80% of you, penicillin is a healing frequency. But for 5 to 20%, it is toxic. And I mean, by this, I want to empower people to realize that they usually know what the best sound that they need at a particular moment. I am very disappointed. I've helped bring awareness of sound and music to the public, and yet people going, okay, you need to hear this frequency of a certain amount of cycles a second. That's the healing frequency, and it's nonsense anymore. Look, we have an incredible rainbow or smorgasbord of sound that is available to us to feed our body, mind, and spirit, any more than if I held a particular little pen light and said, this is the color of healing, and nothing else does it. What nonsense. Great sales, great to also to confuse people who may not know, but I'm telling everybody, listen to stuff, and if it feels good, embrace it. And if it doesn't, you can find something else.
This is awesome, actually. So in a practical sense, I'm going to say it back to you so I got it right, because I want other people to get it right. You're saying that if, let's say, people were surfing through, you're on iTunes, right? Of course. So, because I'm used to going, by the way, if you haven't been to his website, that's a great place to find tons of everything. So that's where I'm used to getting your stuff. And years ago, I don't know if you remember, but you gifted me like an incredible collection of your work. So let's say someone goes to iTunes and they put in Jonathan Goldman, and then they hear, oh, and ding and bong, and these sorts of things, and they're like, okay, I could just put that on in the background while I'm having a hard time. But then you get that you might also like. And the next thing you know, they're listening to the Beatles, and they say to themselves, oh, well, that makes me feel good too. Maybe I'm just going to listen to that. Now, what I want to clarify is, I think you're saying there's nothing wrong with listening to music that is psychologically uplifting. But if your goal is creating a vibratory field for your home or your healing practice or your meditation, you need to get back to those other recordings that are really labeled sound healing. They're simple. They're right. You describe them as sort of simple, maybe harmonized, but not very complex. And don't overthink it. Trust what feels like the vibration you need. Did I say that all right, or did I mess it up a bit?
Well, that was beautiful. And once again, one of the things that is so predominant are these different people who really, I mean, marketing has become an incredible science these days. So how to market stuff so that people will want it, and this is the frequency for you, or this is the sound for you. And so I really want to stress that even if something on YouTube is 5 million hits because it's got a different thing, and it's this particular sound. If that works for you, that's great. But once again, a smorgasbord of sound occurring. I love the Beatles, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Talk about the ISO principle and be able to lift someone's emotions up. And if you can lift their emotions up, you can lift their spirit up. And if you can lift their spirit up, you can lift their consciousness up. So it's great. And at the same time, I personally have actually done sort of what I perceive of as sound healing versions of, for example, John Lennon's Tomorrow Never Knows. I did a version of that, which starts off with a Tibetan deep voice, and then it has that big bold and all that stuff, because that song, which is from Revolver, you may know, turn off your mind, relax and float downstream. He initially perceived of that as being like the Dalai Lama chanting from a mountaintop. And so I said, what if, I can do something like that now. What if I did a version like that? And it's a pretty interesting phenomenon. So all different musics. And I want to suggest that, yes, we have a whole lot of stuff, and bless not only iTunes, but Spotify and Amazon. You can Google me in Pandora, and they have, excerpts of my stuff on that are doing very well. And a lot of it also, Jonathan, is not only the frequency, but the intention that I create. 35 years ago, I had this extraordinary life-changing experience in which I came up with this formula: frequency plus intent equals healing. And I think it's more valid now than ever. And the intention, if you like, is whether it's the belief, our feelings, our consciousness, or whatnot. I mean, we talk about the power of the placebo effect. And what is that, more or less, than our belief in how something is going to affect us, which is very, very important. So once again, frequency plus intent.
Okay, I gotta ask you a question to get
Throwing a lot of stuff
this.
at you.
So we say everything has a vibration, whether it's this abalone shell or my pen. And I think the way I'm understanding it, and this is bad armchair physics, is that because it's all made of subatomic particles, energetic vibrations, that collectively they have a kind of radiant frequency based on the way it all comes together. Is that right? Like a plant, a rock. I mean, everything, when we say everything has a frequency, I mean, it's not like everything is being played like an instrument. It's not like everything has a heart or a brain, but everything has an energy signature. Is that because of what's happening at a subatomic level? And I'm actually going to use that to get into another question.
But let me throw this at you. Getting back to my, shall we say, difficulty with people saying, this is the frequency for that, which sometimes is true, but as 20 or 30 years ago, I realized that, wow, we really need to get into the era not of frequency, and frequency has perhaps just caught on within the last 5 to 10 years in terms of everybody going this and that. But frequency actually should be plurals of frequencies, of composite frequencies. Two of the greatest people who work with vibrational frequencies for healing, from my perspective, a guy named Royal Rife, who you are probably familiar with, Rife Machine. Another guy named Dr. Peter Guy Manners, who had the cymatic instrument. Royal Rife worked with a composite of 3 different frequencies for any particular pathogen that he was working with. And Peter Guy Manners worked with a composite of 5 different simultaneous frequencies for any organ, bone, or tissue. So perhaps it is not simply a particular one frequency, but a whole bunch. And people don't understand that, because that's huge. And so oftentimes when you hear these things, they're not necessarily very musical. They can be discordant. And in fact, if you want to shatter something, you're ultimately, a singer shattering a glass with a particular tone, that tone is going to be in a field of chaos when it shatters. So once again, chaos can be positive and powerful depending upon its purpose.
So listen to this. You might know this, but in herbal medicine, traditional herbal medicine, there is often a plant included in a formula called a driver. And the driver actually doesn't have, as far as we know, any specific medicinal or chemical value to the person taking it. Yet it potentiates the actual formula and somehow energizes it and makes it more potent and effective, binding the elements within. So about intention, would you say in your experience that intention is itself a frequency? So that if I'm using a toning a tuning fork or a crystal bowl. When you say intention plus frequency, are you really just saying the frequency of the mind plus the frequency of the tool?
Well, a couple things. Intention can be a feeling, can be if you like, a feeling from the heart. It can be a belief. It can be a desired outcome. And I don't perceive it as being necessarily the same thing as frequency. What came to me is it's the glue that holds these frequencies together. I don't think it's true. I think it's the, shall we say, the envelope in which the frequencies ride on. If you like, they ride on a wave of consciousness. Just as an example, I know we've all had the experience of being at a party and somebody coming up to you and go, "Lovely to see you," and you feel like you've been psychically slimed because this person, so the words, the frequency, if you like, was one thing, but the intention and the vibrations are totally different. And I know that we can literally make the same sound with different intentionality and have a different outcome.
Yes. Okay. I love this. So I'm going to connect it to two things, and then we're going to talk about this blog and the humming experiment you wanted to share with us. So one theme that's been playing on my mind this week, it's come up in a lot of classes I've done. In fact, I just sent someone a message before we got online, is the idea and the experience that to be for something, we don't need to be against something. And the way I hear it through the lens of what you're saying is, if I stay connected to my intention for the world, whether it's by voting or my conversations about politics or my conversations about the environment, I can contribute to that love vibration, that healing vibration, that vibration I want for the world by staying in that vibration. But if I hold it with resentment, with againstness, with anger, with despair and rejection, then in some way I diminish my own power to evoke a change, no?
And that's not really love, my friend. If you're feeling that, just here's the thought, and boy, we're going so many different places and I love it. But I was just thinking this morning, because we are in such a divisive place on this planet right now, where it's either black or white. And I want to say, whatever happened to gray? Which is a fairly high state of, it's this and this. And that is one of the great difficulties, I think, that has created such a divisiveness, is people go, well, it's either this or it's this. Right. Well, why can't it be both? And why do you have to be, on a level? And I think that is so very, very important. We are one, and yet, and listen, one last thing in terms of love, because a lot of people have such issues, as you know, with the concept of love. They maybe conceive of it as a different word besides love. But as you know, the concept of appreciation and gratitude seems to be really a major key that very few people can have difficulty with. So just even being in I got to tell you, I am in such appreciation of this conversation we're having. This is really stimulating my spiritual juices, so thank you.
Same. I'm sure people can feel it. It's interesting. I remember years ago, this was 20 years ago, when I was more involved with healthcare, Fetzer Institute was doing research. They had a program on love, and I think it was just on love at first. And their clinical studies showed exactly what you were saying. I think you were alluding to something like this, which was whenever they did tests relating to love, the testing kind of fell apart because 10 people had 10 really different ideas of love, from sex to parenting to compassion. And when they switched the language to appreciation, gratitude, kindness, forgiveness, something more descriptive, people found it more relatable. And so what I want to share coming out of your comment is that's a beautiful reframing for people today, which is sure, pick your quote side, but hold it with a consciousness that's neutral, right? Gray. If that's your vibration, that's your vibration. And if the world chooses it, great. And if the world doesn't choose it, maybe that's okay too, right?
Wait a second, let me just interject, because once again, pushing buttons. So talking about love, and I have a colleague who's a doctor, and unfortunately, I don't, you know, he may be a very good doctor, but I don't think he understands sound. And he has helped instigate the belief that a certain frequency is a frequency of love. And so this blank, the frequency of love, and people go, wow, if I listen to this, I'm going to experience the frequency of love. And years ago, I said to him, you know, this is really dangerous. I said, because a mother holding her baby and humming a lullaby to her baby, if she's got to look at a guitar tuner to make sure that she's working with this particular frequency in order to encode love, that's just horrible. I said, the divine beings, the gods and goddesses, do not want to be basically instigated into certain categories of particular frequencies. It's something way different. So I just share that with you from out of the blue, but it's okay.
It's excellent. And it's the last technical question I want to explore. And then I'd love to hear you talk about sound healing as a toolkit for people going through stress and change. You have this wonderful blog about immune systems. But the thing that I wanted to pick up on, so it's a question, I think you've answered it, but I'm intrigued by this. How do you experience the difference between live acoustic sound versus digitized or electronic sound? Is it really ultimately about intention, that either can be healing, that they're equal in a sense? Or is there something characteristically different about something organic, like an actual drum versus a digital synthesized version of a drum?
So, my friend, yes, this is a conversation that I can't properly answer in the next couple of minutes because it's so huge. Yes, there's a difference between live and recorded. There's a difference between digital and analog. There's so much else going on that I would rather, at this point in time and space, with the remaining time together, just share with our beloved audience some aspects of how they can use sound to help them through these difficult times. Would that be okay?
Perfect. And the way we'll put a bow on what we've just set aside is whatever you choose and whatever you do, if nothing else, keep it connected to your highest intention and your deepest love.
Beautiful, beautiful. And a quick thing, I think the gods and goddesses of divine who did not like to be at one point broken into zeros and ones for the digital realm are doing whatever they can to assist us on our planetary levels. So they're working and they're playing along with us now too. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, for the next time.
Yeah. So I'm going to first of all suggest, if possible, that people do go to my website, which is healingsounds.com, because we've got a lot of information. It's an award-winning website. There's a lot of information, a lot of free downloads, a lot of different sonic tools for transformation, and it's something I'm really proud of, because I basically signed onto this planet to help promote the uses of sound and music for healing, and I want to help people, bottom line. With that, I've got some nice free listen to it recordings. That's it. Yes. Healing sounds. All right.
And you've got that humming book up there.
Yeah, that's a good. And I want to talk for a brief amount of time just about the power of hum, because right now, first of all, there are two ways. I'm going to go through this at slower, but at rocket speed. There are two ways that sound affects us. One is called psychoacoustics. The sound goes into our ears, into our brains, affects our heart rate, our respiration, our brain waves. Really, really important in terms of being in a state of chilled out and de-stressed is just by listening to certain music. Okay, that's number one. The other one is called Vibro Acoustics, and that's where sound goes into our body on a cellular level, affecting us down to our DNA. That's Vibro Acoustics. And humming, which is something I'm going to just share with with everybody for just a minute, is the most powerful vibroacoustic sound that we can personally make. it was once again, Andy and I were looking for a sound that everybody could work with, because as you know, I've worked with some extremely sophisticated sounds, whether it could be called the divine name or Tibetan deep voice chanting of certain mantras, or different tuning forks or different X, Y, or Z, and that's great. But I wanted something that everybody could use now. And my wife and I, Andy, looked at each other and we went, what sort of sound is something that everyone can work with? And we went, So, and then we wrote this book, and the first chapter is nothing more or less than peer review information about the physiological benefits of self-created sounds, including the hum. And among other things, I'm just going to name a few. You get the release of melatonin, which of course, and melatonin, incidentally, has recently been shown to have antiviral qualities, as well as being...
it's promoted at COVID clinics as an important supplement.
Nitric oxide, which is brilliant. Nitric oxide is actually generated when you hum, particularly in your nasal area, and that's one of the areas where the virus first encodes itself. So if you can generate nitric oxide, which is not only a vasodilator, but also an extraordinary antiviral agent. So there's that. You get also the release of oxytocin. You get reduction of heart rate, blood pressure, brain waves, all this stuff. It's in the first chapter in the book. And the reason we wrote the first chapter in the book was that I said, how are people going to take humming seriously unless we show them? And it literally, as Bruce Lipton said, you get a pharmacological event each time you hum, and it's free and it's healthy and helps happiness. So blessed be on that one. So with that in mind, we're going to play a game for a second. I want you to hum for 30 seconds and then pinch your nose, okay?
Should I watch my 30 seconds on the clock? For real?
Just try it, because you won't even do it. Start humming. Oh no, pinch it.
Yes.
You can't hum and pinch it.
Oh, I stopped. It stopped it.
Right. So therefore, most people don't know that. And I say, if you don't know that, then are there other things about the hum that you might possibly not be aware of? So basic bottom line is the hum, because it is the most powerful. The sound isn't coming through your nose. It's only in your nasal cavity. And therefore, it's creating this total vibroacoustic. So with humming, and I'm going to...
I can also hum down in my throat if I want, right?
Yeah, you can hum anywhere, but your lips are going to be closed. With your intention. Okay, we call it conscious humming. With your intention, watch this. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me, because that's one of the things about Zoom, is Zoom has the wonderful ability of not being able to recognize that the hum is not unwanted noise, so it may just cut it out. But here, I'm going to do this just myself, maybe with a little shift of pitch, but I'm going to hit a single tone. I'm moving from my head to my heart. I don't know if you could hear that, but it happened that quickly, because I'm fairly adept at doing it. And it was like really easy.
Yeah, I got it. It sounded kind of just high and tight, and then it just became resonant.
And once again, the major cool thing about humming is you really want to be in your comfort zone. You don't want to strain. You just want to, look, babies hum. Old people hum, everybody hums. So I just like to suggest that for people who are checking this out, that what they would like to do, and I'd like to lead them in about a 1-minute phenomena. Sit up with your back straight and take some slow, deep breaths as you were guiding us in the beginning. And we're just going to do 3 conscious hums together. So closing your eyes, bring the breath down your belly, and for the first one, just slowly begin to hum in a comfortable level on a single tone. And taking another deep breath and doing that again. And one more, and then being in a state of silence. One more. And then just checking yourself out. I oftentimes tell people to do this for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
Being in a place where they will not be disturbed. And Jonathan, it almost becomes a psychotropic experience.
Yeah.
Humming is a really advanced form of shabd or sonic yoga. And the more advanced that you get, the more intentions you can do it. You can use this for anything from if you have discomfort in your head or your throat or your chest or even anywhere into your belly. You can learn to vibrate and project the hum down to your body, particularly with the intentionality. And it is life-changing. It is life-changing.
So 5 minutes a day.
Which would be about 25 hums if you don't want to set a timer. But you just got to do them chilled out. Make sure you're doing them in a place where you won't be disturbed. And it is such a cool practice to have. It works with breath. It works with vibration. It ultimately works with consciousness. Allow yourself 5 minutes afterwards just to be sitting there, because for many people, they become so blissed out that you don't want to have to, get up and do something because you might, shall we say, be a little dizzy. It's that powerful.
Yeah, I could feel it. And honestly, I want to be very honest with you. When you said we're going to do 3 hums, I thought, oh gosh, what's 3 hums going to show anyone? And I felt it after 2.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating or being silly. By the time we did 3, I could feel a deep meditative state coming on. Now, there's no rules around the pitch. There's no rules around the duration. You just do the best you can, belly breathing to the best of your ability, silence, sort of centered in the sinus, and hum. And 25 cycles to 5 minutes, whatever comes first. It's amazing. It's really amazing. I mean that.
I'm going to jump off and do an offer that if it does ever feel appropriate, my wife Andy and I, because we think this is so important, we would be glad to do a presentation for your people focusing totally on the hum, because I went through it at lightning speed and it deserves so much more.
Yeah, let's do that. So we'll plan some time with you guys, maybe an evening class. But I can't believe how fast our time has gone. It's 11:30 already. And in theory, if we're going to respect people's, illusion of time, we're going to bring it to a close. Of all the things we've talked about and all the things in your heart that you would like to share with the world today, knowing that people perceive such instability, that people are creating and experiencing such uncertainty, extremes of anxiety and frustration, or just stuckness. Is there any word of wisdom that you would like to leave them with in parting, either a practice or just a metaphor or something to remember?
With our light, our love, and our sound, we can change the world. We heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves and we heal the planet. We can make a difference, and we have a choice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, gosh, we close sort of, I was going to say sort of intentionally. We always close kind of intentionally. So sometimes it's a reading, sometimes it's a prayer. We have a statement of being that has actually been in this community for 130 years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer a few quick words of thanks and some reminders, and then we'll just close by sharing that and catching our breath. And so first, Thank you. I am so grateful you made time for us. I'm so grateful you donated your energy, your love, your wisdom, and I am going to hold you to that offer. Love to have you back to do some more teaching, and I can just participate and listen. So thank you. Also, thank you for all your work over the years and all the tools that are available to people. I hope this really opens up something for people, because I think, if anything, there's maybe a little too much thinking going on these days. And if people can just get into the vibration, the feeling, the energy, their bodies, I think that could be powerful. Thank you to Susan behind the scenes. Don't forget, one and all, to check out the class page. Tim's diversity dialogues are coming back. My Spiritual Experience series is coming up. Kathy Humphrey's Soul Circles is coming up. We are grateful for your time, your energy, your presence, and of course, it should be said, a great and popular form of energy on the planet, your donations, because it keeps our community strong and vibrant, our building in repair, our staff employed. So thank you, everyone, for your generous, kind donations. And brother, with that, are we good to take a breath and head out? You good? You're good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to encourage people to take a breath and just give yourself a moment to exhale. Feel yourself slowing down and settling down, and cultivate a sense of witness. What are you observing in yourself? The dynamic energy of ideas, the settling, calming energy of the hum. Is there something you want to remember or take away? Just moving to a place of gratitude for this time we've shared. And as we hold this awareness that all life is vibration, we are reminded of our legacy in this community. The Althea statement of being, and if you remember, you can share and read it with me. God is all, both invisible and visible, one presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. We are individualized expressions of God and are ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, perfect substance, which is just a way of saying that we are all vibrations in the one great song. And I welcome you to share yours with love and clarity, so that we might enjoy this journey together with blessings and healing for all. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Brother Jonathan. Thank you to Andy as well. Give her my love. And to everyone present. Thank you. So much love. And I offer you a 7-day hum challenge. Let's reconvene next Sunday and share our experiences of humming every day for 5 minutes. Lots of love.